Hello everybody, this is Code Nos with another EVE Online beginners video. Today we're going to be focusing all about the Tier 1 Galente cruiser, the Vexor. In my opinion, the best T1 cruiser there is. So we're going to look at a fit here. This is a T1 fit for the ship, and it's going to be demonstrated in a level 2 security mission and in a Tier 1 Abyssal. So this fit comes with just Tier 1 equipment. You can fly it as is. You got the Enduring Armor Repair, Damage Control, 2 drone amplifiers with T2 because they're quicker to get to, Multi-Spectrum, a Weber, battery, prop mod, drone tracking, your hybrid turrets, and then some aux pumps for your repair, and a capacitor control to help you be cap stable. You can swap out one of the drone amplifiers for another compact multi-spectrum to be a little more tanky. So this is what the fit would look like that. If you were newer and have lower skills, I would recommend going with the 2 defensive modules vice the offensive modules. This ship we're going to show you here just running a level 2 security mission, and we're going to be going out clearing all the rats out of the security mission. These stand no chance against this T1 cruiser. You just breeze right through them. You're actually able to generate good loyalty points, which you can convert into ISK later on, and get the good faction rewards to build up towards running those better missions later on, which can really help propel you into the more expensive ships, whether you want to go for heavy assault cruiser like the Ishtar, or move up into your battle cruisers like the Myrmidon, or into the battleships like the Dominics. So we're going to warp off here and go into our combat site, which was in the same system. Just going to go through, kill off all the rats. I do have the skills for having 5 drones out at a time. I would recommend before you use this ship to at least have that skill for having all drones out. If you don't have medium drones yet, that's fine. Small drones will work, but do make sure that you can field all 5 drones that this ship can utilize. It is a drone boat. It does get bonuses to drones, so you want to utilize that. Security missions, generally when you warp in, you're going to have an acceleration gate in about half of them, which you'll have to go through to even get into the combat site. Sometimes when you come in, there'll be enemies already there, and it'll pop up with what you need to do. For this, we're going to go through, just target and eliminate these enemies. They're not even going to scratch the paint, right? It's really easy. It's almost capable of saying that you could do level 3s with this ship, but unfortunately there will be some of them where there's just too much DPS coming your way, and you're going to need to have somebody else with you if you're going to try and do something of that nature. Doing it by yourself in the T1 cruiser is not going to go well. The Vexor itself is an armor-based tank. What that means is that the shields generally are not there to stop the damage. They get run through quite quickly, and then it's the armor that you're using to actually tank with. In this case, we have the armor rep, plus we have the multi-spectrums to provide armor hardening. So that is really where this ship normally will fly when you're doing any sort of combat, is with no shields, and then repairing on the armor as required. For these level 2 security missions, you're never going to have to let your armor repairer run the whole time. You'll be able to pulse it on and off, and you'll be good to go. Later on, when I show you in the Abyssal, it's a different story. So make sure that you are comfortable with flying the ship and all of the different modules and how to use it before you go attempt Abyssals. They are much more difficult, and they're not as forgiving as the security missions can be. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and clean these up, and then we're going to get the lovely 9 prisoners, and we will fast forward here to where they actually get delivered. And once we have the prisoners in our hold, we're just going to go ahead and dock back up at the station, complete the mission, receive our juicy rewards, and now we're free to move on to either doing the next mission, or in this case, let's go out and demonstrate this ship in a Tier 1 Firestorm Abyssal. If you're new to running Abyssals, new to the ship, new to the game, please start on Tier 0s. That's the Tranquil Filaments. There's no shame in starting out small and working your way up. You can learn the mechanics of how Abyssals work and the different setups and the ship types that you're going to encounter before you start scaling up the difficulty. I am just demonstrating that it can handle the Tier 1s, and it is not an easy handle of the Tier 1 as well. I do run into some difficulties with this run. I make it through, but it's not clean. Alright, so for those of you that aren't familiar with Abyssals, each filament has a different weather type. In this case, it's a firestorm. So after 20 minutes, if you're still inside, you're going to die. If you die inside, you and your capsule both die. The weather dictates what bonuses or drawbacks. In this case, ships have bonus armor and a penalty to thermal resistance. So you want to match your damage type to the resistance that's being applied, the -2. And in this case, we're using an armor tank ship in the armor type filament, which allows us to have more efficiency going through. If you match those things, it really makes runs a lot easier to do. You can run with 1 cruiser, 2 destroyers, or 3 frigates, so you can run these with your friends in smaller ships. You can also run it by yourself in the smaller ships. It just makes it more difficult. There is more loot in the smaller ship ones though, so if you run it with 3 frigates, you will get more loot than if you run it with 1 cruiser. When you get into the Abyssal, you do have to turn your modules on, so don't forget, turn on your propulsion module, your tracking modules, your hardeners if you have them. And in this particular room, there is the Edencom ships, which have a chaining attack, and it's going to really mess with our drones. If you look at the bottom right, it is devastating our drones. And I did not play this very well, so I'm going to lose a lot of the drones here. And as you can see, I'm also losing a lot of HP. We're already down to our armor. We have to start our armor repair. So we have to be very mindful when we're going through these. The ship can handle T1s. It is not a walk in the park. This would be a little better with having the second hardener as opposed to the second drone damage controller, but that is a personal preference on whether or not you want to get through the sites quickly or if you want to have an easier time surviving through them. Like I said, if you're new to this, have the extra defenses. It's worth it. For these Tier 1s, you should not run into time issues unless you lose all your drones, which I almost do here. Once we get down with this Skybreaker, though, this will be much easier once I take them out. But our poor drones just, they take a beating here. It's okay, though. Alright, so, room makeup. If you see, there's a extraction node, and when we first entered, there was a bioadaptive node. That is where your loot actually is in these. So the Abyssal itself has 3 pockets. And at Tier 0, there's only that bioadaptive cache. And once you get above Tier 0, there will be other caches spread around that are varying distances from the conduit to move forward. I recommend, until you're very comfortable doing these, to just grab the bioadaptive, because that is where the bulk of the loot is anyways. So I would just do that. We're going to grab the loot here, and then we're going to go forward into the next pocket. So you just go grab the loot. The loot is going to be a combination of these Triglavian surveys and then some other components for building the Triglavian ships, maybe some BPCs, and later on in some of the higher ones you can find multiplasmids that actually can alter your modules and give you abyssal modules. The running of these, so like this one has 760,000 ISK worth of loot. It's not bad, right? That's for the first room, just a couple minutes of work. although it was a little dicey there with me losing the drones. So this is the tier 1. So we go into the next pocket, and we have what is quite possibly the most dangerous room if you don't know how the mechanics work. That Charybdis tyrannus, affectionately known as the Karen, has a really high single target damage. So you do not want to fly directly at it so that it hits you with its punishing weapon. You want to fly with like about a 30-degree offset to it, which you can either double left click out into space to fly towards that direction that you just double left clicked, or in this case I'm just flying towards the bioadaptive cache so that I have that angle of attack on the Charybdis, and it does not apply full damage to me. It's very important because it can deal a lot of damage each hit, but if you keep a good angle to it and you keep your speed going, you should be fine. It's very important though to keep that speed going and the angle so that you can actually close in and like sort of like a tightening circle pattern is ideally what you're looking for. We're going to grab the loot here, another 720,000 or so, but we need to keep moving. So we're going to go towards that next loot down there, and we're sort of doing like a zigzag pattern to get in closer while our drones are working on destroying it. It has more armor base because we're in the firestorm. If we were in a gamma filament, it would have taken longer to get through the shields, and if we were in any of the other ones, it would just have the normal amount of HP that it has. Does take a little while to kill the battleship rooms. So there's the Charybdis Tyrannus here, and then there's an Overmind one. Later on there's Marshall rooms. So those ones have more HP and different things that you need to do, which is why I recommend running the lower tier ones to get used to what you need to do without a bunch of other ships that you have to worry about. For instance, this room in a higher tier would have 5 or 6 other ships that you have to prioritize, possibly, over the Charybdis while still avoiding the damage from the Charybdis. As you can see here, the drones almost got this thing taken care of at this point. We're going to get this last loot, another 200,000 in the hold. Good to go. So now we're up to like 1.6 million. So now we can start heading back towards the conduit because the Charybdis is going to die, and then we can just, once that dies, we can recall our drones and get onto the last pocket. Top left, you can see we have a timer. When that red circle runs out, we die, so we have to make it through within that time period. We're not running into that at all with this run, but it is something that you need to be cognizant of, especially if you start running to get far away loot caches. You can end up using too much time in the first or the second room, and then not giving yourself the time to actually kill everything in the last room. So you got to be mindful of that. Here we go. I'm going to go into the last room now that we have all the drones on board and see what we have. Alright, we have a Leshak, so it's another battleship room. The Leshaks, they are deadly. They do drain capacitor from a long distance when they're the kind that drains cap, but they don't have much HP. They die very quickly as long as they're by themselves. Later on, in rooms where there's multiple, they will rep each other, so you have to prioritize them. But they do not have much HP. They go down pretty quickly, but they do deal a lot of damage. And you can't avoid their attacks as well as you can the Charybdis Tyrannus. So you need to get them off the field. I've already got the drones going out there. We're going to go pop the loot cache so we can grab that. Because we're not going to make it to that Leshak very fast. Like, our range on our little hybrid turrets is very short. So we need to get the drones over there doing their thing. But you can see the Leshak did not have a lot of HP to start, so it shouldn't be too difficult to bring it down. As we continue repping, we're about like at 60%, 70%. If you get below 50% or so, start overheating. You'd rather overheat sooner and be able to catch up then wait too long, and then you're now behind the game and you end up dying, even though if you would have started over here sooner, you'll outlast the opponent. Just make sure that if you do overheat, you do not burn out any modules. If you don't know what overheat is, if you look at like the repair module, there's a little green tab at the top. If you click that green tab, it will overheat the module. For an armor repairer or a shield booster, this will speed up the cycle time, increase the amount of HP restored, and it reduces the amount of capacitor used. So it's a threefold increase in the effectiveness of the module itself. Things like an afterburner or micro warp drive is just going to make you go faster. Guns will make you shoot faster and use less capacitor. And then tracking units will track better. Webbers can actually web to a farther distance out, so that's another use case where you may need to overheat in order to web something so that you can close the distance on it. Alright, we're going to grab the last bit of loot here and then exit through the gate. Alright, for a loot total for this run, looks like we got about just under 3 million for the tier 1 run right here. And for this ship, I have it fit out at 30 million, so it would be 10 runs to make back the cost of your ship. Again, I recommend starting out on tier 0s if you're using all the T1 fittings, and then working your way up as you earned enough money to replace your ship. You should not be increasing difficulty until you've earned enough to replace the ship. Alright, I want to thank you guys for watching the video. If you're here this long, if you enjoy the video, please leave me a like. Let me know that you like the video. If you don't like the video, if there's something I can improve upon, please let me know in the comments down below. Thank you, and fly safe.